Okay, just so you guys know we're being recorded. So be good. Okay, again, this is a 101 class, and I'm going to start out just by, going over the basics of the layout of the Appfile screen. When we get to the point, is there a specific type of file you guys want to do, a seller file or a buyer file? Does it matter? And I think with the way the market is right now, buyer files probably are a better way to go, but I'll do whichever one you guys want to do. So, okay, when you first log into your Appfile screen, this is what you call your home screen. If you're not sure you're on your home screen when you're in Appfiles, just click on the home button and that will be your home screen. Appfiles is a Windows-based program, so every time you click on something, it's going to open another window. So just watch how many windows you might have open on the same property. If you make a change on that tab there, and then you open another tab, and you close the tab, and you don't see it on the other one, you might lose what you did. Okay, so just watch how many tabs you have open on the same property, and if you're working on this one, make sure it's the only one you're working on. I've had agents call and say, well, it didn't save anything. I said, how many windows did you have open? Well, the window they made all the changes on, they closed, and then they went to the other window, but because they closed that window, it didn't save the data. So just be careful with how many windows you have open on the same property. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the tabs and things. I'll go across the top, but you can search your Appfiles here and here. You won't have a global search. Managers will, I will, regional people will. Local search, you can search your Appfiles there. And then we have Appfiles, new Appfile. You can create a new Appfile here, create a new Appfile here, and then over here. You guys are in my way, so I got to keep moving you around. So help, if you click on the help, there's some little videos you can watch in here, and they're almost like PowerPoint slides. So it's really specific to Appfiles. It's not really specific, a lot of the functions directly for us as a brokerage, but they are basic videos on how to create, different functions within. And then we have the Appfiles support, and I always tell everybody, try not to reach out to Appfiles unless it's, go after hours or weekends and you can't get a hold of your sales manager or your ASC. If you do the Appfiles support, they only answer their phones between 9 and 5. If you do submit a request, they will get back to you as soon as they can. I think after hours and weekends, it might take a little longer, but during the week, I know they're very responsive, very quick. Again, I always encourage agents, especially, during the day and during the week, please reach out to your ASCs. Your ASCs are trained very much in this program and are very knowledgeable. We live and breathe it 8 hours a day, every day. Of course, it's your name, and when you want to sign out, your sign out. And I'm going to quickly go across the tabs. Again, your home button. When you first create Appfiles, and as you're creating them, down the side, it will list your most recent Appfiles that you've created or been in and made changes in. If you don't see a file you're working on here and you see it, and I'm an office level, so you'll see a lot here. If you go to My Appfiles, mine are a lot because it's an office level, but this would be all of your Appfiles. Your buyer files, seller files, active listings, pendings will all be in here. You can sort them by file name if you're looking for something specific. If you do that, remember it goes in order by the number, not by the house. It's the street, excuse me. You can sort them by file type, so you get all your buyer files first, then goes from there. And then you can do sort date. So right now we're going to sort it. It goes all the way back to 18, so you can get your most current up towards the top. Okay, so I'm going to go back to home, but you can also search within here. Okay, so once you're in your Appfiles, so say you're looking for, I don't even know what to look for. Say you're looking for, these are most of my test files, but if you're looking for how, a file you did on Michigan, it will bring up all the files that you did with the name Michigan in it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my home screen. Signature request tab just tells you how many you have out, how many that you need to review, and how many. Do you want me to make the screen bigger for you, Angie? I'll try to make it a little bigger. Is that better? Okay. Signature requests you have out, ones you need to review, and how many you've done in the last, 7 days. Now, I'm not a licensed agent, so I don't do signature requests. I do show you how to do them in the class. Okay, your inbox is the same. Anything that goes in and out of Appfiles via email should be done within the property email. So everything is tracked in and out of that file. Okay, your activity just shows you the activity. Again, for mine, it's all the office activity, everything my agents have been doing. And the system tracks everything. And anything in the activity is permanent. It cannot be removed, deleted. So I always like to let everybody know that. Checklist, that's not even anything I want you to be worried about. We're going to skip over that. And then tasks is what I call a follow-up. And you'll see in the center of my screen, I set up tasks to remind myself of files that still need my attention, or I'm still waiting on forms from the agents. You as agents could use it to remind yourself of an inspection, your upcoming closings, anything that you wanted to use it for to remind yourself of something. So it's a task, but I call it a follow-up system. So that kind of goes across the top, and then down, we're going to go down the left side. If you're new agent and you haven't, go into your settings, and if you need help with this, go see your ASC. We want you to set up your email address footer. So every time you send an email from Appfiles, it will automatically have your footer in it. So you do not have to type Kathy Kraft, regional service, all that information every time you send an email. It'll automatically populate your signature that you use currently in your email program. So again, you go to your settings and then email footer. And if you need help, it's really kind of simple. All you have to do is click on this. You want to copy, and you go, and it says copy the link. You go to your email program, whatever program you're using, but in Gmail you compose. You right click and paste that link, and it's going to send your footer into the program for you. So I'm not going to do the whole thing because it'll put 2 in on mine. But it will import this in. So every time you choose and you create an email within Appfiles, that footer is always going to be there. Okay. So that's just kind of a quick overview of that. And I'm going to close that. Okay. Don't worry about form values. We don't want you. Appfiles totally discourages us from training in it. The only thing in form values that you need to know, if you were to go in and fill anything out on any of these forms, just remember it's permanent, and every time you pull that form up in a file, whatever you have in there that you've put in there as additional information is always going to populate on that form. There's only one form that you could use to do it on, and that's the as-is contract. If you were to go to page 12 and put your name and your brokerage as the selling agent, it will populate that every time you pull a contract in. But you just don't add things to forms unless you want it to show up every single time. So I always tell her, shy away from even training you guys in that. Okay, again, create a new app file. Your print blank forms. In here is the whole entire forms bank. All of our in-house disclosures, all the FAR/BAR legal forms are all in here. If you click on the drop down, you can scroll through your residential contracts, your listing, all the addendums, all the Florida legal forms, everything's in here. If you wanted to search for a form, what this is nice for is if you run into the office and you're in a hurry and you need to hurry up and print a form and take with you, you could just type in, say you're looking for the lead-based paint disclosure. And I always tell everybody less is best on your search. Make sure if you're using your FAR/BAR contracts, you are using your FAR/BAR addendums. Do not use a CRISP with a FAR/BAR, because your ASC's number one will kick it back if the ASC doesn't, the manager will for sure. So you have to use your FAR/BAR addendums with your FAR/BAR contracts and listings. So if you were to click on it, it brings up the lead base right up there. You can print it and download. They both do the same thing. And with print and download, we'll download it to a PDF so you can just print it. You can type on this form and print it and take it with you. Okay, so it's just so if you're ever looking for a form that you might use one time, and you need to print it and take it, that's a good place to go to get it. Upload files, make an update, create a new task, scan a document. All of these functions should be done within the actual app file of the property you're working on. And when I get in a little further, I'll walk you through all of those processes. So in your app file section, you'll have the local search. These are all your files, signature request created by me, same as what was on the tab up here. Right now we have 396 files in the Englewood office here in trash. And then here's your agent workspace. This is office level again for me. Yours numbers will be lower, but this is how many buyer files you have, how many seller files. Most of us won't have tenants and landlord files. And then any test files you may have. And then your current files is how many files of yours, these are yours only, that are active listings and how many are pending. And then you will see your 2022 closed. Okay, so that just pretty much runs you. This is all my stuff over on that side. So we're going to go down the center again. This is your tasks. This is where you said if you've put a follow-up in, it will be on your home screen. So you will see it every day when you go in. And everything below here is all the activity that's been done in the app files. If you'll see your activity, and if your ASC is doing things, it'll show. If your manager's in there approving files, it will show the activity. So all of this is permanent, cannot be removed. Okay. It's like, and when we get into the app file, I'll show you what it looks like on your side and different functions about it that come in handy once in a while. So over on the side, your recent new app files. Again, I kind of went through. If you don't see them here, you can get them all from your My App Files. I got to move. I know you guys keep seeing my mouse, but I have to move you around so I can. So is there any questions on any of that so far? It's all pretty simple. If you ever have questions, again, reach out to your ASC. I always tell everybody, don't be afraid. You can't hurt the system. You can't break it. Create a test file, play around with it. It's the best way to learn, especially if you're one that likes to learn hands-on. So the next thing we're going to do is create a new app file. Again, I said there were 3 ways to do it. Create a new app file, and you can do it from over here. Because this one's right here, it's the one I always use. So when you click on the create a new app file, it looks like a file folder, and it's like a manila folder. So the file name always needs to be the address of the property. If it's a house, it has to have the house number, street, city, state, and zip. Because we are the whole state. If you say it's 123 Main Street and just say Florida, well, is that St. Augustine? Is that Sebastian? Is that Port Charlotte? So if our files are audited, it's a little more clear where the properties are. Some counties, I know we're here on the west coast of Florida, Sarasota County if it's a vacant lot, they do not assign a number to it till there's a physical house on it. So if it's a vacant lot without a number yet, you just put in the lot number, lot 12, Port Charlotte, Main Street, Port Charlotte, Florida, and the zip. Okay. So the file name again is always going to be your property address. I'm just picking one. Okay. So you see, if you don't put something in there, it won't let you move on to the next function. And then we have the file type and the information. So the file type is whether we're doing a seller file or a buyer file. Now, if you were doing a test file, you could just call it a test file. It says trash, but you could do a test file. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick a buyer file unless you guys want to do a seller file. Is there really any preference? Okay. So we're going to do buyer. So once you change the buyer file, you'll see it now populates more information. So on your residential sales contract, this is what kind of paperwork the checklist that's going to load for the required documents that are required for compliance. So we can do single family home with HOA, pre-78, FHA, condo, vacant lot. I'm just going to do a single family. I'm going to do a single family home today just to make things a little quicker. If you're representing the buyer, really the only forms out of here that you would have to have from your buyer originally is the FHA VA. If it's a single family home with HOA or lead-based paint, that should already be on the listing agreement in the MLS, or you would get those from the listing agent. The seller should already have those filled out and signed. Agent name, it will automatically default to you, but you can type your name in there. You can put your buyer's name in there. I'm just using me and my hubby. I always do. This makes it easier. You're just now creating the file. You're just now going to create your offer to submit on the property. So you do not know a closing date. You can always go back in and add it. Okay. If you know the MLS number, which if you're putting an offer in, you should, go ahead and put it in here. Because sometimes we can't always find a file. And I say this from an ASC standpoint because sometimes the street might be misspelled or something. If you have that MLS number here, we can search the app files by the MLS number if you put it in this field in the file section. Okay. Next place, the referral type. Please don't tag it as a referral unless it actually is. Not a personal referral. If it's a Quicken Loans or a referral from another agent from out of state, then you would tag it as an actual referral. Okay. If there's no referral involved in it whatsoever, do not put anything in there. Of course, we're not representing the seller, so we do not put a name in there. Other notes, use it for any notes you want on the file that you want to remember every time you're in there. You may see notes from your manager. You might see notes in there from your ASC. If they're not your notes, please don't delete them. Okay. But you are more than welcome to put a note in there if there's anything unique about the file. You know, if it's a trust, who the executor is, you know, anything that you want to put in there that is there. Okay. It's there for you to use for any notes you might want to put in there. So now we're just going to click next. Okay, and then this one is your select users. Everybody down the right side you can't remove them. They're your sales manager, the accountants, your regional managers, your ASC. These are people that will always have access to the files. Down the left side are all the agents in your office. So say you work with an agent on every single file that you work on, that you have a teammate or something. You can add them to the file here, and they will show here. If you want to pull them off, say you click somebody by mistake, then you can take them back out. You can always add a user to your file, another agent, once you're in the app file. So if, say you're going to go on vacation for 3 weeks or go out of the country and Alan's going to cover your files, you can add Alan to the file before you leave. So if your sellers need help, they can work with Alan. He has access to the files. So we're going to create the app file. And this is what it looks like. It now is a yellow because sellers are this color, but here's the address. The address is here again. Address here. Now, there's a lot here. I'm going to go through a little at a time. Begin with app files. It's live. So if you've made a change and you don't see it, refresh the page. Okay, so it is a live program, especially when it comes to signatures and all that. So I'm just going to run over a couple things. Anywhere you see your blue buttons, you can click them. Say you made a mistake with the address and it's the wrong zip code. You can go in, make the change, save your changes. In this whole function area here, all these blue buttons here will open that main screen again. Okay, so one's no different than the other in that section. I'm going to change the zip code back just so it does actually go with. Again, here's the agent information. All that information is right there. So more notes that you have, the more you'll see. Okay, we're going to get to this section in a little bit. But here in the center is your file access. This is where all those people that have access to the files are going to be. This is where if you needed to add another agent to cover your file while you're gone, you can come in here and add them. You just click their name and it adds them right to the file. Okay. This is the date the app file was created. It tells you who created it. In every app file, every time you create a new app file, it has its own email address. So the next one in this office that gets created will be 1878. Okay. I'll show you what that's good for in a little bit too. Okay, and again, the tasks. If you wanted to put a reminder or a follow-up on here, this is where you would do it. You would create a task. I'm just going to do test. Who do you want it assigned to? If you're putting in the task, you're going to want to assign it to yourself. Then you pick up a follow-up date. So say you want to be reminded on the 12th that you have a home inspection, whatever you want to put in there. Okay, you can set a priority level, high, low, medium, but you want to get a reminder. And when it sends a reminder, it's going to send an email to your email program. And I know when I get here at 8 o'clock in the morning, my reminder's already in my inbox. So they do them it comes in early in the morning. But you want to you pick who you want it to remind and when you want to. I always laugh at this one. Before the due date, after the due date. If you want a reminder to me in my world, I want it on the date that it's due. So add your reminder and then create the task. Okay, so you see right here, now we have the task. You can click the pencil to edit it. You can, X will delete it. If you click this, sorry, I'm having to let people in. If you click this, it'll show you basically what's in there. It's not going to give you the whole task view, but it gives you a quick synopsis of the task view. And again, your recent activity. As we work the app file, you'll see activity starting to fill in here. This is all permanent. When you create, when you send forms, when you do signature requests, when you upload, download, all of that information will show in this activity and will be permanent to the file. I always tell everybody, if you're working with a customer on a transaction, you should be doing all your communication with your buyers and sellers through the app file. If there's a reason why you can't do a certain function, which there really isn't much you can't do in Appfiles, if you do it within your own email program or something, you need to upload that email into the app file if it has anything to do with the transaction. Okay, so then I'm going to come over to the side, compose an email. You can compose an email directly from this app file and send it out to the listing agent, to your manager, to accounting, to anything, anybody you want to send an email to. You can do it within the app file, and I will show you some of that in a little bit. I hope you don't have this option, but if you do, please don't use this the first time without working with your ASC. And delete an app file, the app files never get deleted from the system. It just puts it in hold and trash. Okay, you should, as an agent, never, unless it's a test file, do it as a trash file. Because if you submitted an offer on a property and it was rejected, the sales manager needs to code that as a rejected offer. We have to keep that because our buyers actually signed a legal document. That way it's in the system and they can't come back and say, well, you never submitted my offer to that seller. Well, that's why we keep the app file. So anytime your buyers sign anything or your sellers, we will keep the app file. Okay. File information, or template as we call it. This is really important, and this is not, I always say that it's not an option that you don't fill it out. It's going to start becoming mandatory in the company that this is done. This is the file information leader sheet. Okay. Everything that's in here would be like if you had a file folder and you had a file info sheet on the side, it would have your seller's name, buyer's names, whatever, phone numbers, email addresses. That's what this is. Okay. You can also enter the information in here on the actual property. The more you put into this template will import into your documents and forms. At minimum, we want your customers' names, phone numbers, and email addresses in here. But again, it's a time saver. If the first time you do it, it might take you 15, 20 minutes to fill it out. But every time you add a form into the file, you can import that data into the form. So you're not manually typing it every time. So we're doing a master buyer template. So I'm just going to click on the edit button. And when it comes up, here again, I got to move you guys. You look at it, there's a lot in here. But this is if you're representing buyers, sellers, everything. This is the master template. So you're going to just start filling it out. Now, your buyer's name are Jim and Kathy Kripp. On the first one, you can put Jim and Kathy Kripp. Okay, but you do have to designate who's going to be buyer 1 and who's going to be buyer 2. So you need to separate them out for signature requests. So we're going to make Jim buyer 1. We don't want federal tax ID numbers. We don't want social security numbers. We don't want any of that personal information on our customers. I'm not going to go through filling all this out, but address, if you want that in there, buyer's mailing address, but we do need the email address. Jim and Kathy can use the same email address in Appfiles for signature request. So .loop, DocuSign, all those other ones require two different, totally different email addresses for your buyers and or sellers. I'm just going to use mine. Okay, phone number I'm going to just use. Well, I'm just putting in the office number. But fill in whatever phone numbers, but you have to have at least one good phone number there for the brokerage. So if you want their office phone and their cell phone's different, I'm tabbing through, by the way. You can just, this is a Windows operating system program, so you can just use, tab, shift and tab, back and forth. So buyer's name, and then we're going to put in buyer 2. And then again, you can just tab through. Tax ID we don't want. If you want to fill in their addresses, again, even if it's the same email address for buyer 1 and buyer 2, go ahead and enter it so get yourself in the habit. If they do use, like Jimmy has, my husband has his own Gmail account, I have my own Gmail. But for right now, I just want to show you guys if we're using the same email address, how it works. But no matter which way you do it in Appfiles on a signature request, each signer has their own request. You can't do Jim and Kathy at the same address at the same time. Okay, at the same email address. Okay, so I'm just gonna tab through, and again, if you have the MLS number, go ahead and put it in the template itself. So I'm missing a number. Okay, now all the property information and the legal information, you can import it from the MLS. We recommend you copy and paste it from the property appraiser or the tax record. Mistakes do happen in MLS. You could drop a 0 and a 1 out of the legal description. That means your contract information would be incorrect. So we always recommend that you actually copy and paste from your property appraiser. I mean, I can pull it up and do it. I have Charlotte County up here. But it is, again, you can just copy and paste. So whichever property appraiser you guys, oh, sure. Okay, so property appraiser must be down. All right, so we'll try it a different way. But you can import the data in from the MLS on a buyer file from that actual MLS number. I mean, I will show you how to do it, but our recommendation definitely is just for clarity and not that there are any snafus in the MLS. The MLS is not perfect, just like anything else, but usually your tax records are pretty accurate. So subdivision, I'm just going to put Sandpiper Key. I'm just picking it. Year built, 1982. And the property address. Again, some of it is very repetitive, but what you're putting in here is going to fill it out in the different forms in different places. And when you're going to import, you'll see when I'm all done with all this. Let me give you a little tip too. A lot of us have habits, especially some of us that are like admins. You're in the habit of doing return to road in return. If you do that, this will not populate into the forms. It needs to stay on the same line. Okay? So, county, property legal description. I want to see if I can get this to work. It's really weird. Okay. Their site must be down or something, so I'm not going to mess with it anymore. So we're just going to, we could go and import it again from the MLS, or I could go in the MLS and copy and paste it for now. I'm just going to type in some jargon here. Put something in there. Like I said, I'm just putting stuff in here, guys. Your real property tax ID also is, put that in there because it will pull in on the contracts also. Listing date. It's not our listing. You can put it in there if you want to. Purchase contract date. We don't know what the effective date is or the actual contract date yet because we're still working on our offer. But you can always go back into here and add it. Okay, this is not a one and done deal. You can always go in, add it, change it, edit, add, delete, anything that you want different. So we don't know our effective date. Again, at this point, any of these fields here are optional. You can fill them in if you want. If you know once you get your closing date and your contract date, you can enter them in here, because then if you have to do more forms like addendums and stuff later on, it will import into those forms as well. So let's just say the list price is $525. You can put it in the way you want. Jeez, so good needs. I'm in. So you don't have any way format you want. If you just wanted to put 525,000, it's going to import into the forms correctly. Okay. So right now at this point, we're not so worried about the list price. Commissions, you can fill it in if you want. Your list side, sell side. Okay, selling broker firm. We cannot. This will not. You have to do this every single time. Okay, the only way to get this so that you don't have to type in Caldwell Banker Paradise, Caldwell Banker Premier, Caldwell Banker Sunstar every single time you do it is you have to create a blanket template for yourself that's like broker buyer template, and you would import, and I know this is more of an intermediate to advanced kind of class, but I get it asked on every class. You do have to manually type it every single time if you wanted to import on your forms. You would have to make a master template for yourself that says Caldwell Banker Sunstar, Angie Hill, so that it would fill in but you would have to import it from that other template. So sometimes for the functions you have to go through, it's just as fast to type it, because then you would have to go up, import, find the template, import. So it's like 4 steps to do it that way versus just typing it while you're here. Okay, we don't necessarily, if you want to fill in the brokerage's information, I know in Paradise and some of the regions, their offices are really spread out. If you want to put that information in there, that's fine. This is not all required. This just will pull into your contracts and stuff. So I'm picking on Becky. She's my office manager here. Okay, if you want to put your selling ID so it shows up on the contract. So again, put in whatever information you you want for that. Now the lender, if there's a mortgage involved, you can put the mortgage information in here if you want. Okay, that's totally up to you. And it's nice because there is a spot on the transaction worksheet that looks for the mortgage company and the loan officer. So if you fill it in here, it will import into the transaction worksheet, which everybody I think knows, except for maybe new ones. The transaction worksheet is how you get paid. So it's a required document in your file. So again, if you want to fill in that information, it will import into your transaction worksheet as well. All right, so any of the financial information that you enter here will populate into the contract in the finance section. So let's just say we're going to do $10,000 for initial deposit, and then another $5,000 on the additional. And if you know the due dates and you want to put them in there, again, a lot of this information is user preference on the lenders, the due dates of the escrow, things like that. Escrow agent name. Every area is a little different, but 90% of our deals here in Sunstar, the title company usually holds escrow and title. If they're the same, this is an attorney's office here, but put it in here. If it's the repeat and the same and your escrow and your title are the same, you can copy and paste between the fields, or you can just retype it, because certain escrow is what's going to pull into the contract. So if you're doing title, like on the transaction worksheet, it asks for title. Okay, if it's the same, put it in the same. If, say, Big W is holding the escrow and First International is doing title, then put in, who's doing escrow, who's doing title. We do require on our title company, on the transaction worksheet, an email address for whoever our contact person is at the title. So if our brokers or managers or attorneys have to get involved in the file, they know who they're working with and they have an email address to get in contact with. Okay, so seller name. We're not representing the seller, but if you put in the seller's names, it will populate into the seller's names on the contract when you import the data in. So we're just going to pick, I don't know, give me something. We'll pick on Jeannie today. I'm just putting in Jeannie's name. I spelled her name wrong. She can yell at me. Okay, so in seller 1, Again, like I said, we're not representing. What am I going to do? I'm going to do this way. So Jeannie is going to be seller 1, and then we're going to put Scott in as seller 2. It will populate into the contract. So any of the documents in the package that require the seller's name, even though we're not representing it, will import into the forms. So again, there's a lot of information on the seller. We're not representing them. Now I tell everybody, when you're filling in this whole template, this is not a save button. This is if you have to add a field that's unique that you need it to be able to import into the forms. That's just to add an additional field. Say you have 3 or 4 sellers or 3 or 4 buyers. You want to add buyer 3 and put in Matt. That add button it's still going to stay all the way at the bottom. It's not going to move Matt up here up with the other 2 buyers. He's still going to be all the way at the bottom. You see, but you could add buyer 4. Okay. It's not going to, and then we'll get into this in a little bit more, but it's not going to add those additional signature fields to the documents either. Those will have to be manually entered. But if you had an estate sale where there are 5 kids or something that need to sign every document, you could add them in there. And when you do the signature request, it will populate buyer 3, buyer 4 into your choices of who's, when you're doing the signature request. I know that might not make a little bit of sense right now, but anyways, the add button, this template, if you close this window, which is all the way back up at the top, it's automatically saves. There is no save button. So don't freak out. See, it's all there. Everything we typed. So if you need to go back in and add data, you just go back to your edit button. You can go in and change, add anything you want. And as soon as you close this window, it's going to automatically save. Okay. Any questions on that? You guys are awful quiet today. I see, did Miss Rose come in today? I thought I saw Palm Coast come in. Okay, so over here, we don't want to create a document pack. We, as Caldwell Banker in Florida here, Premier Paradise and Sunstar, we have already created packs for the most common transactions, buyer packs for vacant land, things like that. If you needed to create a special one, that's okay, but you just need to make sure that all the compliance documents are in that. Merge paperwork, that's for a more advanced class. Up here, remember I told you from the main screen that I would go back over these scan, upload, and add forms. That's all because we should always be doing it within the file that we're working in. So when we created the the file, we told it we wanted to be a residential sales contract, buyer side, single family home. So that tells you what type is there. And then this is the checklist. These are grayed out. You can't click on them. They don't do anything. This is just your checklist of all the required documents that are required for compliance for the file. So, okay. So what we're going to do now is add the forms. So the green button, add forms. Okay. You can search for a package. And you can see we got a buyer pack, buyer vacant land, residential listing, and vacant land. We did not create packs for every type of transaction. So if this was a residential listing pack and you need an HOA and a lead-based paint, you would have to add those forms yourself. We did not, and just like condos, we didn't add all the different various forms because every transaction is a little different. Every condo development's different. Every single family home transaction is a little different. We would have probably 200 different types of packs in there. So anyways, you could choose to select a form, or if you come down and just scroll down, you'll see the buyer pack, and it shows you all the documents that are in there. If it was a vacant land, residential listing, vacant land, and then when you scroll down the in-house forms like our CB disclosures, all that are in here, and then you're going to start seeing all the legal forms. So we're going to do just a standard buyer pack. And again, if you select all, it take everything from that buyer checklist, see how it's grayed out here, and move them all over here. Okay. So if this was, say you needed to add an FHA VA. Say all of a sudden your customer's like, no, we're going to do a FHA financing. You can add that document here, or you can even wait and add it later into the file. As long as you get the document and get it signed, select the, search for a form. Like I said, if all less is best. If you do that, you'll see the FHA form. You click it, adds it over here into your list of forms. Okay. So if you say you added a form by mistake, we're going to take it back out. Okay. Again, the forms bank is always here. You can always add a form at any time later on if you need an addendum or a counteroffer form, anything like that. So once we have all the forms here, I'll give you a little trick. You can do it here too. There's two different ways to do this. You can change the order of the forms. We will always have the transaction worksheet as your leading form. If you want your contract to be the next one up, you just drag and drop it. Okay. So if you wanted to change the order the forms appear right off the bat, you can do it here, or you can always do it within the file. I'm going to put it back where it was. Okay, so once we have this, you just add your selected forms. When you do that, it opens, I call it a train, because it opens all the paperwork, all 31 pages, and they're one after another after another. That's why I call it a train. Some people call it a group. I call it a train. Okay, so you can change the order of these forms here. Okay, again, they're all here and they're grouped in 5. Yes, the home warranty, the whole 12 pages. You can go, they're all here, different orders. But again, that's why I always say I like having, I'm not going to go through it all, but they're all there grouped in 5 pages. You go back to the top, we're going to go back to the first page. So your numbers are at the top and at the bottom. Okay, here at this part, you can pop this out. If you pop this window out, it just makes it full screen instead of being a window inside the bigger window. Print and download, there's nothing filled in on them, they're blank. But if you wanted to print them all blank, print and download, all it does is download as a PDF for you to print. You won't have this option, managers and ASCs will, to lock the forms. We'll get to submit, but submit is the button you would use when your paperwork's all filled out and signed and ready to be reviewed for compliance. You would submit it to the checklist, and that notifies your ASC there's documents that need to be reviewed for compliance. Under the actions, you get print download. Some of these functions are the same as what's across the tops of your sheets. Okay. You have an edit fields tab and an edit pages tab. Edit fields, you get to look at everything right out in front of you. Edit pages just breaks them down in a smaller version, but they're all there and they're all broke out. So say you wanted to get rid of that last page, you could click on it here because it's really a blank page. Go back up to the top and delete that page. That's kind of where when you're on the edit pages tab, it edits the actual pages versus editing the fields. Hold on. I'm going to check the chat. It's a good question. And it's a good manager question too. So when we review the documents for compliance from an ASC standpoint, when we review them and everything is good from our standpoint, we accept them and we lock them. We don't want the agents editing a document that's already been approved, because then the manager's going to approve it. Depending on the form, the transaction worksheet should never be unlocked and let them edit, because that means they're making a change. So if they need to make a change to the transaction worksheet, they need to make a copy, because everything that's on the transaction worksheet, the ASCs have to enter all that information into account text. So if something changes, a closing date, a purchase date, the title company, we need to know what was changed. So if we lock a document, I can show you in another file in this, and we'll come back to it, Dominic, but it does keep the agents from being able to do anything. They can open it and print it. They can open it and make a copy of it, but they cannot edit it in any way, shape, or form. Okay, it's a good question, though. I like the question. Like I said, when we get towards the end of the class, I can kind of show you some of that, Dominic, if we have time. If not, I can go over that kind of stuff on my next class, which is the 3rd Thursday of the month. Okay, so edit fields, edit pages, split forms. If you needed to split the forms, at this point, you shouldn't be splitting anything off of the trade, because they're all blank. There's nothing in here. Okay, and everything that's in this train is required for the file. You might want to use that form after the fact, and I'll show you that when we do after we do the signature request. Import values. This is the biggie. All that information you typed in that file template, you're going to import it into the forms using this button. So if you click on your import values, import from a form. The only time you can import from a form is it has to be a form that was created in the app file originally. It can't be a scanned and uploaded document. And it must have matching fields from form to form. So if one form says customer signature and one says buyer signature, those form fields have to match exact in order for it to be able to import the data back and forth. Import from your info fields is the file information or the template, all that stuff that you filled out. And you can import from your local MLS. Here in the Sunstar region, it's Stellar. I know Paradise and Premier have different. But you should have the option to import from your local MLS. We're going to want to import. And these tabs are the same thing. If you see, I got to pick one. As we work through it, you'll see we're in this tab. When I click import from info fields, it's now taking me to the next tab automatically. So it's telling you the source app file, which is the one you're in, and it's pulling 3 from here, 3 values from the file information, and it's pulling in 18 values from the template. So all of 21 values are going to be pulled into. So you choose, and then it's going to show you, and it's going to populate this information into all those forms in the train. It's going to import that. If there's something in here you don't want it to import, say the sales price is not right, check the box. It will not import it in. Okay. Seller's name, say you want it to be Jeannie, St. Peter, and Scott versus Jeannie and Scott. You just change it. Okay. So everything that's in here, we want it to import. So we're going to click on the Start Import. And it's telling you it imported all this information into your forms. Excuse me. And then you just say Done. Now, it will never import the address of the property. Because the way the template is, the choice was to either have it fill in the transaction worksheet or fill in our legal documents properly. Well, we'd rather have it fill in the legal documents properly, the contracts, the listing agreements. Because in order for it to pull from the template, the address would have to be set up the same exact way it is on all of the Florida legal contracts. So I always just tell everybody you can do another import from the MLS, and it will pull all that information in. Okay. I mean, I'll show you how to do it, but I'm going to uncheck everything else because I don't want it to change the legal information. You can do 3 different imports. You can always do another import. You can always go out, come back in, do another import. You can always import data from outside in if anything changes. So I'm just going to click on the import from the MLS. You must have your MLS number. This program does not pull from property appraisers or tax records. Okay, so it is the right property. We're going to choose. All right. We don't want it to, see, I don't want it to change anything that I already put in there because I was just putting mumbo jumbo in there. So I'm just going to uncheck what I don't want it to replace anything. So we're going to let it pull in the property, address, county, and all this. If you import, whoops, I'm sorry, because we're pulling from a third party outside, we have to acknowledge. It won't let you import if you don't check this box. So start your import. It's just telling you what it imported. See, all that information is filled out now in your transaction worksheet. This information and this information all pulled from the file information. And when you import it from the MLS, you see that it pulled in the listing office information from the MLS. Pulled in the list price. Okay. So again, transaction worksheet is a requirement. I always suggest you always fill it out. You know, even if you're on an offer side, fill out your buyer side information. When it goes under contract and you have a fully executed contract, then you can start filling out the other side. It doesn't matter whether you're representing the seller or the buyer. We need a name on both sides. We need a brokerage on both sides. These are required fields that we have to enter into our accounting system. So if you're representing the buyer, we need to see the seller's name. We don't need their personal information, their email, because they're not our customer. And I know as an agent, you don't want to share your customer's information with another brokerage. So you're going to, we only just need the name. If you're representing the buyer in this case or the seller, We always need an email address. No ifs, ands, or buts. If it's in the template, it will pull it. Okay, see how it pulled the title company? I should have put the mortgage in there. But it will pull it in if it's in there. This is a new field. If your seller or your buyer is purchasing a warranty, we just ask that you check the box. But you see how it filled in on your forms leading through. I'm going to skip through, get to the last page of the warranty, which I deleted the blank page, by the way. But then there's your contract. See how it filled in your seller's name, your buyer's name, address, the legal information, and it filled in all the finance information that we pulled in from the template. It still did not pull. It did this last class. It didn't pull the escrow in. I'm going to need to email Appfiles and see if there's a glitch. Why it's not pulling the escrow name out of the template. Okay, so I'm just showing you right now. I'm going to go back to the top in a minute, but that it did fill out a bunch of information from the template. But right now, the forms are all in a different order, like the contract's almost towards the back side. Me, in my world, I usually like that being like right underneath the transaction worksheet, because that right now is technically probably the most important form, so you can get your offer out for your customer. But see how it does fill the information out. Now, in the buyer pack, we do have an EPA guide. Florida statutes requires us to provide a copy of this to our buyers. There's no place for them to sign. All we need is proof that you emailed this to your buyer through Appfiles. So if you can keep it in the package when you do a signature request, they're going to see it. So that's our proof that we sent it to them. Okay? And then your home inspection disclosure. That's at the back. So I'm going to go back to the top. When you go back to the top, it's only taking you to the top of the 5 pages you're in. So if we want to go to the very beginning, go back to 1 through 5. Okay. I was just checking the chat, see if I missed anything. So when we're back at the top, everything you just did, imported, even if you physically typed on it, there's no save button. Again, if you close the window, it saves it. Now down on the left side, this is where your paperwork is. General paperwork is like a holding section. And as I'm working through this, I don't even know what time it is. I'm getting close to time already. Time flies when you're having fun. Anyways, if you email paperwork in, it's going to go into a holding spot called emailed paperwork. If you upload documents, it's going to create another holding place called uploaded documents. So if you know you're looking for something and I know I emailed it in, it'll be in the email paperwork section. I always tell everybody, rename your documents. That way you know what you have. Okay, so I'm going to go back in. The transaction worksheet is the leading form. So here's all your paperwork again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the order, or you can split your transaction worksheet off, because everything in this train requires your buyer's signatures on. The only thing it doesn't is the transaction worksheet. There's no reason for your buyer to even see this form. This is strictly in-house. So we can split this off. And you can do it different ways. You can do it from split forms here. You can do it through the actions, or you can do it from the edit pages tab. It's all does the same function, but it just depends on where you're at. So I'm going to, whichever tab you're in is blue. So if we want to split forms, you're going to click on the form you want to split off from the train. We want to split the transaction worksheet off, and we're going to let it just sit in the general paperwork section. So all you do is split your selected form. And it said it was successful, so you say, okay. Now you see how your train renamed from transaction worksheet to standard buyer, because the standard disclosure is now the leading form. I always tell everybody, if you're moving forms around and you're keeping it in the package still, rename your package. See a standard little blue pencil right here. Let's just say this is the CRIP offer on 1651 Beach Road. Because if you put in an offer on Beach Road and then say you have another offer that, say this one falls through, you can use this same file for your buyer. And now you're going to put CRIP offer on 1245 Beach Road. But renaming your documents in your train, any of your documents that aren't named properly, it keeps it more in order for you, so you know what you have in your file. And also if you say your ASC calls, well, I don't see that paper where it's down there in that mumbo jumbo of other stuff. Okay. After you change the name, you either need to hit your enter button or the green check mark. So now it doesn't matter what the leading form is. You know it's your buyer's offer on 1651 Beach Road. Now me in my world, I want the contract first. So I'm going to I'm going to change the form order. So in order to do that, we have to do it from edit pages. Change form order. And it's a drag and a drop. So I'm going to put the as is at the top. And I'm going to put the home warranty all the way at the bottom. I want all the disclosures, everything right there. Okay, home warranty, they have to accept or decline, but you want them to be able to take their time to look at the brochure. So whatever order you choose to put them in, you need to save changes. So now when you go out, go back to your edit fields, your contract is first. And I'm going to give you, I'm not licensed, so I can't go through any of the legal stuff on this, but I can give you some tips. If you say your purchase price changes from when you filled it in, you can go in, you can change it. So I can. So let's say we want it to be 570. If you had, this is an auto balance form. So you have to tab through. So say you wanted to change your deposit amounts. If you just click here and then click here, it locks the auto balance because it's programmed to balance from top to bottom. So if you go in and change a number here and you didn't start at the top and I say toggle through or tab through, the bottom balance is not going to be accurate because it's an auto balance starting at top to bottom. So if you do make a change, say you want to leave that, we're changing 15. Tab through. We're going to fill in our escrow. This should never, ever, ever be blank, and TBD is not an option either, but you'll learn that in contract classes. Okay, so anything you just tab through. If you're not changing anything, tab through. If you see I forgot something, shift and tab, go back up. Okay, but you see as I changed, the bottom number changes. Now, on your finance, you can either put the dollar amount or the percentage. So if you put in 80, that's 80%, which is, I have my deposits is 150 instead of 15. So I'm going to shift and tab back up. Yeah, it's a pain. Or you could start at the top. As long as you start and tab through. Okay, see, now it's a little more accurate. Looks better than a negative. So anyways, just explain that you got to be careful. If you click in the middle and make a change on a number and you're like, well, it didn't change, because you have to start. As long as it's in editable form, you have to start at the top, tab through. If you have a set of initials on the bottom of this page anywhere, it automatically locks the document. You cannot edit it once you have initials on it. So if they need to if your buyer, if it was a mistake, you could redo, add another contract, import the data from this contract into the new one, and just make the changes on page 1. Okay. So again, that was just something I wanted to show you guys real quick and just let you know. So I'm going to go to the contract. The only other thing I got to remind you, make sure any addenda that you need to go with your offer, that you check if it has an HOA with it, a lead-based paint, say licensee's personal interest in the property, say you're representing your brother on this property, all of these, whatever is going with the contract, you need to make sure you've got your addenda checked. Watch your additional terms. If you're not sure what should, or shouldn't be here, always check with your sales manager. Okay. So that's just a couple little tidbits. All right. So I'm going to close it again. Everything we did, the change order, everything it's saved. Now we're going to I'm showing you how to do the signature request. I don't know about you guys, but I get tired of sitting this long. So again, everything you did is saved. Down here is see where the transaction worksheet's just sitting here all by itself. Your CRIP offer. Okay, and I always tell everybody, I always get the excuse from my customers are 92. Do they have an email address? Yes. Do they have a device? Yes. Well, they can do it. I don't care if they're 150, they can do it. If you have an email address and a device, they can do this. So when you open your documents back up, in the middle, you have your request signature. And I'm going to show you what your customers are going to see because I'm going to send it to myself. You want a request signature. Tells you if you have one party, two parties, and if you have a third or a fourth person. Okay. You want to start your signature request. Say you must put in your signers. Now we're doing seller 1. So you should do them in order. You wouldn't want to do buyer 2, then buyer 1. So I'm going to do Jim Cripp. Okay. Make sure you don't uncheck because this allows them to sign in the documents. Now you'll see down below each of our forms is separated out. We're doing buyer 1 or buyer. But you see how when I click buyer, every form that's the field is programmed the same as buyer, it automatically toggles it. Okay. For the forms that have customer, they changed it. Woohoo! Since my Appfile class last, we had some requests to change it. They'll be the same. They changed it. Used to be, I think it was wire fraud and one other one. It was customer signature. So now we have buyer. Just make sure that buyer 1 or buyer is checked for every form, that you don't miss one. Now in the home warranty, only one of the buyers needs to be able to have the ability if they don't want it. So if you're not sure if your customers want it or they're going to waive it, you have to check the box in order for it to activate that waiver field for your buyer to sign if they don't want it. So by checking the boxes, you're activating those fields within the forms on the electronic signature. So then we've got everyone down the left. Now on the right is your buyer's initials on the contract. Okay, so once you have buyer checked on every section, we're going to do next. Okay, if you want your buyer to fill in any of their mailing address information on the contract, that's totally up to you. If you want them to, you need to check the boxes to activate them to do it. The home inspection disclosure, only one of the buyers needs to be able to check the box. I don't want agents checking the box, and believe it or not, we can tell if you've checked the box or the customers checked the box. We should not be checking boxes for our customers. You have to check both boxes to activate the fields on the home inspection to allow them to check a box, whether they want it or they don't. Okay, America's Preferred Home Warranty, I'd really like this to just go away. It's all just the whole programming of the whole brochure. Okay, there's nothing you need to do there. Okay, you just click next. Now this is the email that's going to go to your customer. So Jim's name is there. It's showing it's coming from you. So whatever your email address is, and then it has your Appfile email address there. In the two, you can free type an email address, but if you put it in the template, it's going to be here from the file info. Okay, so like here, if you needed to add a new email, so say you want to add the listing agent's email. So every time you go in here, you don't have to type it. But right now, we're going to just use this one, because buyer email. We do not, okay, change any of this at all. This is what the brokerage wants to see in the email. If you need to add a note, just go in front of the word please, hit the enter button, and type in, please check a box. I'm okay. I'm in a hurry. Home inspection. Whatever you want. This is important. We really don't. But number one, do not delete this link, because that's where it's going to embed the link for your customer to click to be able to do the electronic signature. Okay? I'm deleting that because it's so misspelled it's not even funny. So, of course, you see on the email how it automatically embedded in my footer. So we're going to do next. And then the next field is you should automatically be defaulted that you're going to be notified when they sign. Don't check your manager and your ASC unless they've asked you to notify them when the documents are signed. Then you just click request signature. Okay, so we did one. Now, even though Jim and Kathy use the same email address, you cannot do both people on one request. That's one reason why Appfiles allows us to do it. You have to do one request to Jim and then do a whole nother request to Kathy. In the actual template, yes, you can add what you want, what you don't want, remove, modify. In the template itself, like I said, was not going to be a mandatory option that they have to have names, phone numbers, and emails. Names, emails, and phone numbers. I always say I have somebody in the Sunstar region that doesn't believe in filling in the file information. And when they sit with an ASC or sit on one of my classes and see, if I add an HOA form or a lid-based paint or an addendum to a contract or a counter or any other addendum into that field, they're manually typing that form in. Every time you add a form in, you can import that data from the template into that form. Instead of them typing out the address, the seller's names, buyer's names. To me, it's ease of use. As long as you do it the first time, it's over and done. Did that answer the
Kathy.
question? Or am I
No,
missing?
just to make sure I'm clarifying, in the body of that email that we're sending for signatures,
Mhm.
that's what I was referring to.
Okay. No, we don't want you changing the verbiage anywhere in there. When I do this one to Kathy, we'll get to where the email pops up. You can type any note you want.
Right, that's what I meant. So we can
Yeah.
add what we'd like, just not
Yes.
modify or delete the template.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
That's
Thank
why I
you.
say go in front of the word please, hit your enter button, type your
Yep,
note. Because I
understood.
had, no, and that's okay. Because actually we had an agent in an office that nothing would ever work. And I said, I got to watch this guy step by step by step. Well, he was deleting the whole text of the,
Okay,
the email, so it removed the link. So that's why I
thank you.
always stress in class, be really careful not to do that. So we already have one active signature request that we did for Jim. And if you scroll down, it shows active signature request, who it was sent to, date, time, how many signatures, how many initials. For right now, we're going to leave it, but now we need to do Kathy's. So we're going to do start a signature request again. I'm going to do Kathy. Now you see how Jim buyer signatures already grayed out in request, in request. Now we're going to do buyer two. Buyer two, buyer two, buyer two, buyer two, buyer two. These are all sellers. And then we want to make sure we got buyer two initials. So you just want to make sure that buyer two is toggled in every section. Next. Now, if you want buyer two to fill in any of the personal information, that's fine. Home inspection, only one of them can check a box. So we already put that in request to buyer one. So Jim's in charge of checking a box. Again, all the home warranty stuff. Next, and your email. Like I said, as long as you leave all of this, just go in front of the word please, type whatever they want. If they can type, as long as they don't change any of that, it's fine. And then in the two, we're just assuming. So we got buyer two. Again, you can free type an email address at any time. Next. And you should default to be notified and request signature. So say you have a third or a fourth buyer. You would have to manually enter the signature fields to the document before you can send a signature request to if more than two people. So you would have to edit the document first. That's more of an intermediate to an advanced level class. But I know a lot of questions came up about that from the other regions. That's not, it's not very common to have 4, 5, 6 people, but it's easy enough to fix. And if we have a little bit of time towards the end, I can kind of run through that too. So now you see you have two active signature requests. Again, there's Jim's, here's Kathy's. Say Jim calls and says, I never got it. Well, I'm going to tell you AOL, Yahoo, Hotmail, there's one other one. Their email programs, especially AOL and Yahoo, are older, antiquated, and their security protocols aren't up to snuff for the e-signature. So a lot of times it'll go right into their spam. So I always say check your spam. If it's not in their spam, you can resend a request. If you send it the second time and Jim says, I still didn't get it, it's not in my spam, ask them for an alternate email address, especially if it's AOL or Yahoo. You can cancel the request from both Jim and Kathy. Say Jim calls and say, you know what, I want to change the purchase price. As long as neither one of them has put one initial on any of those documents, you can cancel the request, edit the documents, and redo the request. Okay? So I'm going to, again, everything we did is saved. See how you still have your active signature? Now I'm going to go to my email so see what the customers see. Okay, refresh. All right, so there's a signature request that Jimmy's going to get in his email. Come on. And like I said, whatever you type, they will see. And how when they get the email, it's got your file information. Let me check that. If anything has already been put on that document electronically, you got to redo the forms if they want anything changed. As soon as one single initial is put on there. Okay, so the email, and you'll see the link embeds into that where that was. They just have to click the link. Okay, and it's Jim's request telling him he's got to sign here. If he's ready, he can view everything on the screen. He can look at it. He can download it and look at it on paper if he wants. Okay, but if there were anything in here, well, in Jim's case, he has to check a box on the home inspection disclosure. Anything that needs to be filled out has to be done before one signature can be put on any of the documents. Okay, so you told him, Jim, in the email, you're going to tell him, Jim, please check a box on the home inspection disclosure before you sign it. If not, you're going to be resending them another one because he'll sign it and not check a box. So that could be a form you could put directly up underneath your contract. Hold on. Instead of me sitting here wheeling, I'm going to drag it. So I think it's second to the bottom. He would need to check the box on the home inspection disclosure before he signs it. I know, I keep moving you guys. So he needs to check a box that we're going to do all inspections before he signs anything. Now, if he were to sign each form individually, he could wait till he got to that form to check the box and then sign it. There's two ways to do that. So you could either put the home inspection at the front, right underneath the contract, or tell him to sign each signature individually. Okay, so but just make sure you let them know that if there is something they have to check a box or fill anything, seller's property disclosure is a big one, but I always tell them send that one totally separate. Let them take the time to fill it out. So he's ready to sign. Click here. This is where you can tell him if you didn't put the home inspection up towards the top or something, he can do them one by one by one by one 11 times. Or 7 times. But if you've already said, go through, check the box whether you do or you don't, and then go up and sign. Okay? So we're just going to do the initial all. They must accept. If they don't accept, it will not let them go. So accept. They must check a box and accept that I'm authorizing for multiple initials. If they don't check the box, it won't let them go. And I notice with like smartphones, because they're smaller, it kind of gets a little bit large on the screen, so they have to like zoom their screen down because a lot of times they might not see that this box, and they'll call and say, I can't get past it. I can't, because they can't see where to check the box. I always have to tell them, make your screen smaller. So accept that I'm initially in 11 places. Jimmy has to put his initials. They can do touch or type. I'm just going to pick next. Okay, if he doesn't like it, he can clear and go back and pick something else, but he must check the box and accept. That's all there is to it. That's the initials. I know the biggest struggle a lot of times is if they're on a smartphone and sometimes it'll come in large, that they just have to make it smaller. So they've completed. You can see his initials are there. Signature 7. He can either sign 7 separate times or sign all at once. Again, they must accept or it won't let them go on. His name is there. Again, they can do touch or type. Next. And if he doesn't, like I said, if they clear or try, say they want something totally different. Say they did do touch, and it's like, what was that? They can go back and redo the touch, like we do when we're signing credit cards, and you can never see what you're signing. Looks like you scribbled. So check the box. Again, if they don't check the box, it won't take it. Nope, 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 nope. They must accept. When I say that's how simple it is, if they have an email address and a device, anybody can do it. So, all right, so it's done. He can download the document. This is what Jim will see. He can download or print the document. Kathy hasn't signed it yet. So I'm going to close it. Go back to my inbox. Okay, well, there's Kathy's signature request. At some time, I will get notification that Jim signed in your email. So now Kathy goes in and signs. I'm just going to quickly go through it. When she gets it and opens it, she can download and print, but she can also see Jimmy's already signed it, initialed it. So she's ready to go. She doesn't have any boxes to check. She's going to initial all. And they must accept the terms and condition. She must accept that she's initialing in 11 places. Initials, again, touch or type. I don't like any of these for KK, but I'll live with it. Accept. and accept. Let's see, here's our initials. Now we're going to, again, sign next or sign all. I have to accept. Her name, touch or type. Must accept and accept. So it really is that simple. As long as they have an email device, I have faith that people can do it. I always tell the agents that tell me they can't do it. I says, because you don't grasp, you don't do it. They're more old school and they don't like the new technology. So anyways, it's done. They can download and print. When we come to our email, you will be notified. See, Jim's completed signatures, Kathy's completed signature. So when I go back to my app file, now if you've left that window open and you've been out walking around, whatever, and you get a message on your phone, okay, Jim and Kathy have signed. You go back to your desktop and it's still here. When you do the signature request, see how it puts a little pencil, and that's really what it is. I know it's kind of small. It means it's out, and you're like, well, I was notified that they signed. Again, because it is a live program, refresh your page, and your little pencil's gone. So if you click on the document, you'll see that Jim's initials are there, Kathy's, and you go through, it's all there. Everything's signed, good to go. Now, as I told you, the activity, you see how it's creating activity now for everything we've done with the signature request? So that's all in there. You can always, anytime it has the PDF or anything in there, you can click on that PDF and view it here as well. It's no different than what's here, but any options, they're in there. All right. Any questions so far on that part? Because we got one more thing I want to show you, and that's how to send that signed offer to the listing agent. Because in here in your CRIP offer, you have 29 pages, but only 12 of those need to go to listing agent. They don't need all our in-house disclosures. So you want to split this contract off just to send it in an email to the listing agent. So when you open it back up, you could either split your forms here. There's, like I said, 3 different ways. But we're just going to do our split form. You're going to click on the as is contract, and it's going to split it out. Go ahead and just let it go into general paperwork because it's still going to have its name. Split the form. Say OK. Now here's your disclosures. Now you see how it says CRIP offer? If you close this, again, it saves. You'll see now your CRIP offer. Really, that's all the disclosures, but here's the actual contract. So you can rename them that just says CRIP disclosures, whatever. You name them so you know what you have in your files. So if it confuses, you know, that's fine. Change them. I always say if it makes it more comfortable and you know what's what, then you're good. You're good to go. So here's your contract. There's 2 ways to send this to the listing agent. You can either open the contract and send it via email directly. Now, when I do this, because it opens another window, I have to stop sharing and resharing. So if you have the contract open, you send via email. Send via email. Hold on, I gotta stop sharing, resharing my window because it won't let me share the 3rd window for whatever reason. This is the email that comes up. It should come. You see it now? Okay, close an email. You see how it automatically attached the contract to it because you had the contract open and said send mail. Now, if you put your listing agent, if you put the listing agent in your template, he or she would be programmed in here. But you didn't, but you can free type. So, I mean, I'm going to send it to myself, but that's all you do. And then you can type whatever message you want. Please see attached office. Please let me know that you did receive it. Thank you. You know, whatever note you want to put in there, and you send the message. That's one way to do it. So I'm going to say hi, guys, again. I got to go back in and share again. So we're going to go back. Okay. So back where the contract was. That's one way to do it. I'm going to close the window, and you'll see here, everything that we've been doing is activity, and it's all permanent here. So the other way to do it is you can come up here to compose an email. You won't see my email screen. I'll have to stop and share again. I just love this part of it. You know that. So, it's the same idea. It's going to pull up your same composing email, but there's no attachments. So you have to add the attachment. So you click on add attachment and you find whatever it is that you're attaching. We want to attach that as is contract. Say there was a counteroffer form or something else. You click whatever you want to attach to it and finished. And now it'll add the attachment. So that's just the two different ways that you can do it. So either way works the same. I'm not going to send that one, but just wanted to show it to you. Come. Okay. So I know that was probably a lot to encompass, but it is a little crazy. I try to get it all in. We got, about 7 minutes. So did anybody have any questions, anything I went over that you need me to re-show? Any questions that weren't anything that I showed you? And I mean, this is open forum. Anything you want to ask, please ask. Because I know some of the question was, if you have an outside form, say it is your listing and you receive an offer outside that's in your personal email. Remember I told you about the functions within the Appfiles. Let's just say this is our listing file. I'm going to go back to my email. Okay, and you see I have a contract in my email that I scanned an email from our copier here in the office. There's 3 ways to get that into your email. Okay, into the app file. You can email something directly from your email into the app file. You can upload it, or you can go to the scanner and type in that actual email address of that file, which I'm not one that wants to stand at a copier and go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 at CBS. I don't have time for that. But anyways, it's in your email. And if you're using Google Chrome, which you should, click on your attachment. It's blank. There's nothing in there. I just uploaded blank forms. Download it. And if you're using Google Chrome and you're set up right, you see it downloads just above your system tray. Go back to your app file. Upload a file. Grab it. Drag it right into the upload. Start upload. Okay, it uploaded. Now remember, I told you however you get it into the app file. See how it created an uploaded paperwork section? You can open the document. It's there in front of you. You can rename it so you know what it is. I'm just going to name it a totally different name. Maybe. I hit the button too fast. And if you hit enter, it will save it, or the little green check mark. Okay, so that's one way to get it in. If I go back to my email, hold on, I gotta go back to my app file, I'm sorry. Remember I told you each one had its own email address? If you click on the copy next to that little green check mark, go back to your email, and we're gonna open this contract email, and we're gonna forward. So whether you use Outlook, Gmail, whichever you use, we want to forward. And in the recipient too, right click and paste, and you'll see it has the property address of the app file. And then you just send. Okay, this takes a little bit longer for it actually to get in there. What did I send an email to that I didn't get it back? I had a typo in my email. There you go. See? Okay, so when I'm emailing something directly into the app file, for whatever reason, it takes a little longer. See how the uploaded paperwork was right there because you actually dragged and dropped it? So you can just refresh your page. Sometimes I think during class it takes like a full minute. But that was one way to get it in. Or you can go to your copier and write this number down on a sheet of paper before you go to your scanner. And you could scan to 1877 at cbsew.appfiles.com. But you have to manually put that in your scanner. So I'm going to refresh the page again, see if my email came in yet. Of course not. Being pokey puppy today. But it will come in as emailed paperwork. There. Okay? So when you email it in, it's emailed. If you upload, it's upload. If it's stuff you're doing within the app file, it's going to always default under the general paperwork. Okay? So that was the way, quick. Anybody have any other questions? a couple more minutes. I think I lost my one manager. I don't know if he's still on here or not. Okay. No questions. Come on, guys. Nope. So, Jeannie, they're all going to teach us something, right? That's what I always tell when agents don't ask questions. I'm like, good, I want you to show me something you've learned. Alrighty. Well, I'm going to stopping the recording.